guys, welcome back to another episode of Elephants in the Room. Hi, I'm by myself today. Coco's usually with me. As you guys know, you can either hear her little heavy breathing in the back because her nostrils are so small, or you can see her on camera, but she's actually at her grooming appointment right now. So she's getting a little cut for summer. So it's just me today. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so sorry that there wasn't an episode last week. I've had kind of a crazy week with health stuff. I got a really bad bug bite, which I know sounds so random, but I got a really bad bug bite and it got like really infected and it was like a whole thing. And I've also had a ton of issues with my skin. I've always had a rash since I was like 14 and it's really painful. It will show up at random times on my face. And anyways, it's a whole long story that I won't bore you guys with, but I'm happy to be back and talking to you guys. So yeah, let's get into today's episode. When I was planning today's episode, I was kind of in my feels a little bit, I guess you could say. I think that I wanted to talk about grief today. And just grieving kind of your hopes and expectations and just things that you have wanted, whether it's plans in your life or the way you have wanted certain relationships to go or what you wanted certain relationships to look like, whatever it may be. Just, I think, in life, a lot of times, which rightfully so, we have expectations, hopes, dreams of what we want life to look like, what we want life to be like. And sometimes life just doesn't end up looking like that. And sometimes relationships just don't end up being what we want them to be or what we hope for them to be or what they're supposed to be, right? So I wanted to talk about this because I feel like literally today, it's something I've been thinking about talking about, and I've had started researching about it and thinking about it. But then today, specifically, what really made me feel pushed to talk about this rather than the other thing I was going to talk about is that I was driving home, I just got hit with this sadness. And I think there's a lot of things and or reasons that I feel maybe a little bit of grief or just kind of this sadness around some of what I've been through and some of the ways that I hope, life would be or how certain relationships would be. And I think that's a really, really crazy thing about grief is it can just show up. It shows up all the time, even when you feel like you've healed, even when you feel like you have grieved that thing or that relationship in the past. Sometimes it just shows up. And I think for me specifically, also pause, I'm going to turn off my space heater. I turned it on because I was cold, but now it's making my eyes so dry. But yeah, I think for me, something that kind of has made me feel like a little bit in my feels this week is that I recently started seeing a new therapist for, why is my brain not working? Yeah, I've been working with a new therapist and, I was telling her about my life, obviously, because that's part of it and kind of catching her up, she's like, okay, this first session is just going to be me getting to know you and knowing a little bit about your story. And, and so obviously I had to share with her my life story and, she was very shocked and very much in disbelief. And, I know I've talked about it before, but, the ACEs test, I've told you guys about that. It's like adverse childhood events, and you take a test typically when you start therapy. And it's on a scale of 1 to 10, and pretty much 10 being like you have severe childhood trauma, and then everything else obviously leading out to less. And so I scored a 9 when I took the childhood trauma test, the ACEs test. So I told her I was a 9, and I shared a little bit about my divorce and, my childhood and all this stuff. And I remember her being like, wow, holy smokes, like, you should not be a normal functioning human adult right now. And then part of me was like, well, sometimes I don't feel like I am. Sometimes I feel like I suck at life. But I think talking about all of that with her definitely brought up some memories. And then there's also been some stuff going on that I don't really know if I'm ready to talk about with my family. I know I've kind of mentioned it to you guys multiple times. I don't want to like dangle the carrot, but there's been some stuff going on. But I think today specifically, I had this moment where I kind of just had this sadness in my heart for the fact that I feel like I've just never been taken care of the way that I'm supposed to in so many relationships, but mainly really close ones in my life and people that were supposed to be there for me, take care of me, and hold it together. And I feel like my whole life, since I was a child, have had to be the parent and take care of others. And it's bled into a lot of things and relationships in my life. And even though I'm so blessed and I have so many people in my life that love me and take good care of me, it just made me sad for just the child within me that just never felt taken care of and always felt like she had to do it on her own. And even though it's a beautiful thing to be independent and to take care of ourselves and all of the things, it's also a beautiful thing to let others take care of you and to let others help you and to be loved and to be all the things. And since I was young, I've just had to do it on my own. And I think I just was grieving, feeling like that was the case. And then I feel like in my adult life and what I'm currently going through that I don't really know how to talk about fully is I feel like I'm in a similar situation where I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to take care again. And I have to hold it together again. And even though I love taking care of people and I love doing all of those things, it's not that I would change what the current situation is in my life or that I'm not happy doing what I'm doing and grateful that I can and I have the ability to take care of some of the people that I love. But it just kind of made me feel like, just this sad grief of kind of just the little girl that never felt like she got taken care of and that she always had to kind of be the parent. And I think grief is really weird. And so all of that to say, like I said, there's stuff going on with my family. I can't really talk about it. I don't really know how, so I'm not going to. But obviously you guys will get little glimmers into it all. But so when we're talking about grief today, I'm not necessarily talking about loss, like death, even though that's a terrible thing. And my heart goes out to anyone who's struggling, who has lost someone. But I'm not specifically going to be talking about that today. Obviously, you may resonate with this episode regardless, because grief is the same process for, so many different things. We go through similar stages of grief, even though they're completely different. We're more going to just be talking about, just the grief that we carry when life doesn't turn out the way that we hoped it would. When people don't show up, when dreams don't work out, when you realize you've been a caretaker, or when you realize that you have given so much love or whatever it may be, and you just haven't received it. I think in any type of situation we're in or relationship we're in, when we give, we have a hope at least that we'll receive, right? And I've talked about how true love is giving without expecting to receive. of course, but also I think there is a hope that we all have, and an expectation that we have, and oftentimes it just doesn't turn out that way. So I think there's a grief that comes with that. And I think grief, the way I describe it in my current life and kind of what I feel like I'm currently going through, as I feel like I've already worked through kind of the depth of a lot of that grief, is just this deep ache, like this deep ache within me. It's not angry. It's just kind of like this hole, like this sad piece that just this ache within my heart. And so first I want to talk about, just a little bit about the emotional response to loss, not just people, but dreams, relationships, identities. So there's a couple different types of grief. There's disenfranchised grief, so grief that isn't socially acknowledged. There is ambiguous loss, grieving someone who is emotionally absent. Anticipatory grief, grieving something before it's officially lost. So like when you're anticipating that you are going to lose something or someone. And then secondary loss, grieving ripple effects, so loss of identity, dreams, etc. Why does it hurt? Why does grief hurt so bad? Grief is tied to emotional attachment. We grieve anything that gave us meaning, hope, or a sense of safety. Unmet childhood needs often create invisible grief in adulthood. Grieving isn't weakness, it's your nervous system processing rupture. And I think it's important to remember, and something that I've learned in my life, because you guys know my life has not gone the way that I expected it to go, like at all. And I'm so grateful for it. Like, it has made me who I am today. It's the reason I'm sitting here talking to you guys. But life has definitely not turned out the way that I hoped or expected. Now, I feel like it's even better than I expected in a lot of ways. But at the same time, that doesn't discredit the loss that I've had. And that doesn't discredit the hard parts about it, even though overall it's all been for the betterment of me and my character and who I am. And it's grown my empathy and all these different things. And I'm thankful for it. But that doesn't take away from the pain that's attached to losing what we thought we would have or what we had hoped for. And just, you can love someone and still grieve the version of them that you wish you had. I think I've had to do this in a lot of my relationships, where it's people that have let me down, that have hurt me, and there's been expectations and hopes that haven't been met. And I still want to have a relationship with them and walk in relationship with them. And I'm so thankful that I get to, but the relationship looks different than what I hoped for. The relationship looks different than what I longed for. And accepting that while also learning to walk in the newness of that relationship is really hard and tricky. And I think for me, for sure, the specific thing that I can kind of think of when I think of that is my relationship with my parents. If anyone knows my story, you guys know I grew up with parents who both struggled with addiction. And obviously that affected a lot of my life. My parents got divorced when I was 8. My dad is disabled, bipolar, schizophrenic. And as I've become an adult and I've started healing and going to therapy and all the things, I've obviously set a lot of boundaries with my parents. I've had times where I've cut off communication with them. There's times where I haven't. There's times where I've set certain limits or boundaries, all to protect my emotional well-being. But the older I get, the more I do desire to have relationships with them, because I love them and because I have a lot of grace for them, in the sense that, like, I, now being 26 years old, I'm like, holy crap, life is really hard. And we're all just trying to figure it out. And all of our traumas and wounds, they shape so much of how we operate. There's so much pain that we all carry with us in our lives. And it affects so much of our lives. And so much of what we do isn't about other people. It's about us. It's about something going on in us. Something that we need help from, healing from, whatever it may be. So much of how we operate is affected by that. And so when I look at my parents and, their struggle with addiction, all these things, it's like, I don't take it personal. I don't believe that it's because they didn't love me. At the time it felt like that, but I don't believe that. I do believe that they love me. I do believe that they tried their best, but unfortunately it wasn't enough and it wasn't what I deserved as a child. But I don't hold it against them, and I love them, and I want healing for them just as much as I want it for me. So with all that being said, you can still love someone, but grieve what you thought they were, the potential of them, who they said they were. And I think for me, in my relationship with my parents, when you think about a mom and a dad and what a mom and a dad do for you and what a mother and father relationship looks like, I've never had that with them. And even now, I have good relationships specifically with my mom, but it's not a mother-daughter, it's not a normal mother-daughter relationship. The dynamic has never been that, and I don't know if it ever will be that completely. And so learning that you can love someone and accept the reality of what that relationship looks like without beating yourself up for grieving kind of what you hoped it would be, that deep desire that you wanted it to be. And so I think that's like the biggest way I can relate, which this is kind of a whole nother thing that I haven't talked about yet, which is so awesome and has come with so many amazing good emotions, but also a lot of other emotions. My mom is sober, and I know in the past she was sober, and I talked about it online, and then she fell back into addiction and she relapsed. But she's like fully sober. She's been sober for like a year and a half now, I believe. And I have been walking in a much closer relationship with her the last few months. So huge win, so amazing. And it's been so awesome and incredible, but also in other ways it's been hard because I've gotten closer to her and it's made me grieve, the years that we didn't have a relationship and all of the things that go into it. So it's been super tricky. But yeah, so that's how I would kind of relate to it. Now I want to talk about the stages of grief. I think I've talked about these a little bit before, but it was really helpful when my therapist first sat me down and kind of walked through these stages with me, because when I was going through my divorce, I was like, what's happening? Like, why am I feeling all these ways? And also just when I started going to therapy too, just kind of starting to learn and accept what I had been through in my childhood. I mean, it was all the things. And so I want to talk about the 5 stages of grief for a little bit. So there is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I remember my therapist told me once, like, you can bounce between these things, which kind of is like wild. You're like, what? Shouldn't it go in order? And then I'm like done with it. And now that I'm 26 and, you know, have been in and out of therapy for a couple years, I'm like, yeah, you really do bounce between these things. And you can think you've healed from something, and then sometimes grief just shows up and it can be, you know, yeah, just a sadness. But I think for sure, when we lose something, we do really go through those stages of grief. And I think it's often easy to not identify them as that and think that it's something else and think that we're depressed or that we're not okay. But oftentimes it's because we're just grieving. We're grieving something, we're grieving someone, and grief does come with stages. So like I said, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And the acceptance part, acceptance doesn't mean that it's okay. It just means that it happened and you're still here and that you still have the ability to heal and overcome whatever it is that you went through. It's just accepting that it happened, that was the reality of what happened, and that it doesn't have to define you or your life. So now, why we go through the stages of grief. Grief disrupts our brain's understanding of safety and reality. These stages reflect how our body and mind try to protect us, process pain, and create a new story. And like I said, it's not linear. We revisit these stages, and it's not linear. We revisit these stages often as part of ongoing healing. Yeah, it's really crazy when you think about it. It's, these stages of grief that we go through, it's our mind and our body trying to process the pain of the loss of whatever that we're grieving, to protect us and to create a new story. And I think that's a really hard part about grief. Whatever it is you're grieving, whether it's what you thought your life would look like today, or how you thought a relationship would be, or what you thought anything would be, and it's not that. I think that we are creatures who like to plan. We like to look forward to the future. And so when things don't go the way that we planned, it can feel like we lose everything. Like we lose our life plan, we lose our identity, we lose our security, because oftentimes when things go wrong or we lose something or someone, it has to totally shift our path, totally shift where we're going, what we're doing, who we are. And it literally disrupts so much of the safety that we create in our minds, I feel like, because of this plan that we identify with. And especially with people, in relationships or with family, like we identify with these people. They're such a big part of our lives that when we lose them, or we lose who we thought they were going to be, the idea of who we thought they were, or what we wanted them to be or hoped they would be in our life, the role that they would play, it's devastating. It shifts everything for you. It shifts your whole entire reality and sense of self. And that's why I think we hold on to things for so long, and hold on to the idea that, we don't have to lose things or people, but the reality is we do. And it sucks and it's hard, but it's really intense and it's really serious. And I don't feel like sometimes we give it the credit that it deserves, and we don't honor the 5 stages of grief, and we don't honor the sadness because we just feel like we have to keep going. And it's like, yes, that's part of acceptance. That's part of the acceptance phase of grief, I feel like, is, okay, this happened. It's not what I wanted to happen. It's not how I hoped this would happen, but where do we go from here? Something that I love, someone I watch all the time. I don't know if you guys watch him. Maybe you do, but I mean, he's really big, but his name's John Deloney. He's like a psychotherapist, or maybe not psychotherapist, but a mental health specialist. He's like a therapist, or he was. And he now has like a YouTube where he people will call in and they'll like tell him their like really tough life situations they're in, and then he'll help them kind of pick up the pieces and tell them what to do next. And I love, he always says, you just need to do the right next thing. What's the next right thing? So it's like, no one's lives go the way that they expected they would go. Everyone loses things. Everyone experiences loss. Everyone experiences grief. Everyone fails. Everyone gets hurt. Like, no one is immune to that in this life. But what do we do with the pieces? What do we do with the situation? It's like, I think sometimes we get so caught up in feeling so just like devastated about where we're at that we don't move forward. And it's like, no, we can't fix what's already been broken. We can't change it, but we can build something new. We can, heal, we can grow, we can do all these things. And so I think, yeah, I just resonate with that so much. And when he says that, because I think when I went through my divorce and I left the church, I was like, oh my gosh, life as I know it is over. Like, everything I thought I knew, I don't know. And now, not only that, but I'm now in therapy realizing how unhealthy all my relationships are with my family, with so many people. What am I supposed to do? I have nothing now. I don't have the religion that I grew up in, the safety of that. I don't have my marriage anymore. I don't have my family. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, life as I know it is over. And I had to build a completely new life. But I could have stayed in that devastation for so long. But I just love how he says, what's the next right move? And part of that, I feel like, is accepting and grieving what you lost and letting yourself grieve that. What do we do with grief that has no closure? I've talked about closure before. I think closure is not, I don't think closure is a myth, but I think closure is not what we think it is. I don't think we need closure from people when they hurt us. I think closure comes from the work that we do. But yeah, so these are some things you can do with grief that has no closure. Validate the grief, name it. Let it be what it is. Let it be something. Don't try to suppress it. Don't try to pretend like it doesn't exist. Write a letter to the unmet expectations or version of life. I always tell people, one of the most therapeutic things is writing letters to yourself, writing letters to people who have hurt you, writing letters. Letters are very therapeutic. And also I think understanding that grief is also really physically exhausting, because our body knows. And when our nervous system is disrupted because of loss and the emotions that we go through because of it, it will make us really tired. So I think understanding that you're going to be tired, you need to give yourself rest. And I've said that before, but like when I first started going to therapy and started trying to work through all my stuff, I was like, holy crap, I'm so tired all the time. No matter how much I went to the gym, no matter how much caffeine I drank, no matter how much good food I ate and sunlight I saw, I was doing all the things, but I was exhausted. And I remember going to my therapist and being like, I'm exhausted. Like, how do I not be so exhausted? And she was like, Nicole, everything that you went through is catching up to you now. You're feeling everything now. And you can't run away from it. You got to let your body process it, because it was in fight or flight for so long. It was in survival mode for so long. You weren't able to, your body was not able to rest. So you have to let yourself rest, which is really important. And the next thing we can do with grief that has no closure is create new meaning. What do we want to build from here? When life doesn't go the way that we want, our relationship or whatever it may be, it is devastating. It is heartbreaking, but it is also amazing, because starting from nothing means you get to build exactly what you want. And so much of what we go through when we experience grief and we experience loss is we start to see the things about the relationships or the job or the thing that we lost, whatever it is that we lost, we like to idolize it after we lose it, because we hate losing things. But then when we start to get to the acceptance part, we can start to pick apart and see the things that weren't good about it, the things that we don't want. And that's what's so beautiful about it, is that it will change what you think you want, because you have seen and experienced something that actually shows you what you do want and what you don't want. Like I remember after all the stuff I went through, I was like, okay, well now I know what I'm looking for. Now I know what I want, or at least I know what I don't want, right? In a relationship or in a religion or a belief. Like I kind of had to rebuild, but what's so beautiful about rebuilding is that you can rebuild on stable grounding, and you can pick all of the materials that you use to build your new house, and you can pick where you build your new house and what color you build your new house with, all the things. So it's like, that's what's beautiful about loss, is that it makes room for something new. And yeah, so it's like it is terrible. It is so hard to lose everything, but it is so much better to build from scratch than to try to build on a broken foundation that you're just going to keep building, and it's just going to keep falling apart because it's not stable, and you'll never have peace of mind. If you live in a beautiful house, but you know at any moment, like the base of the house, whatever you call it, will just fall, will just crack. It's not built with materials that will last. You're going to be living in anxiety. And you can appreciate the paint color on the wall, but like you're not going to have peace of mind. But if you build a house from scratch, it may be a smaller house, it may not be as nice, it may take more time to build the house, but you'll sleep easy knowing that the base is safe and is good, is solid, is made with the right materials. So it's so terrible to lose things, and grief is so sad. When life doesn't go the way that we want, it sucks. But it is also a blessing in the way that it does mean there's something new. And if I've learned anything after all I went through, it's that God is so faithful and he's so good. And everything I lost, the Lord has blessed me with tenfold. In so many ways. And that doesn't mean my life's not hard, and that doesn't mean I don't go through things. But all of the things that I tried so hard to hold on to because I didn't want to lose, I have now times a million. And I'm like so thankful. Like so it's like grief is so hard, but there's so much good on the other side of it. And I think what I had to come to terms with when I was really going through all that I went through is that you can hold grief and still choose hope. Like, it's okay to be sad and also be hopeful about the future. It's okay to have moments where you miss how things used to be, or you miss the idea of what you thought you wanted, and you're sad that your life is the way that it is. But there can still be hope within it, because hope is choosing to have faith, and hope is choosing to not let what you've been through and what you've lost dictate the rest of your life. And I think, there's just so much acceptance that comes with time. Like an example, like I was so embarrassed to be divorced for so long. Like, I was so embarrassed of the thought. That's why I hid it for so long. Obviously, I finally came out about it, but I dreaded the embarrassment and the shame and the guilt and the golden stamp of you're divorced, which made me feel like I was damaged goods and made me feel like there was something wrong with me. And as soon as I started to like really accept it, I literally feel like it's a superpower. Like, it's funny. I think actually Carissa, one of my good friends, she came on the podcast. We talked about that. Like, divorce kind of becomes your superpower. It's actually such a stamp of beauty in the sense of you went through something so challenging that shaped your entire life. You lost something that is supposed to be the closest thing to you in your life. And coming out of that, I feel like really does make you a better person. And some people judge divorced people, and I get it. I used to be one of those people, but now I am not ashamed of it. I'm actually the first person to tell everyone in the room, I'm a divorced ex-Mormon, which you guys know. But it's like, it's really cool. It's a crazy testimony. The fact that the Lord saved me through all of that, and that I'm here now today, alive and breathing, like, it's incredible. It was terrible when I went through it, but like, there was so much good that came out of my pain, if I could say that. That doesn't take away from the pain. It doesn't make it okay, and it doesn't mean that I can't grieve that. And that's what I'm trying to say, is you can have grief and sadness for what you've been through. And even now today I had that, but still be hopeful for the future and glad that you are in the position you are in, because you're right where you're supposed to be. And also, like, hard things make us better people. They do, which sucks. Sometimes you wish it wasn't that way. But yeah. And I think, just like I was saying, hope is not denial. It's choosing to move forward even when it still hurts. Like, you don't have to just pretend like you're okay and pretend like what you went through doesn't affect you, and that you don't have pain around it, and that you don't have grief that's attached to it. You can do that and still move forward. And that's really, like, I feel like the key of life, if I've learned anything. And I always say that, but like, even now in my adult life at 26, there's so much loss and grief that I go through day to day, with expectations, with things I want to be that I don't meet, with relationships, with friendships, so many different things, so many things that I want to go a certain way and they don't. And the most beautiful part about life is you just keep going. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that those things don't hurt. But just as much as there's pain and grief, there's also so much joy and goodness as well. And I think just accepting that it's okay to grieve what didn't happen. It's okay to mourn the version of life you thought you'd have. But sometimes grief can actually guide you into a better life. And sometimes grief can guide you into a more meaningful life, because life isn't about having a perfect life and having an easy life. Sometimes I wish it was. Sometimes I feel like it'd be easier that way. But we want a life with purpose and with love. And sometimes the most beautiful love stories and the most purposeful lives come out of pain. So I love you guys so much. Your grief does not disqualify you from joy. It means you cared, and healing begins right there. I love you guys so much. Thank you guys for listening and being here. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. And I just want you to know, if you're grieving, you're not alone, and it's complicated and it's really hard and it's tricky, but it's just such a big part of life that we go through. Before I close out this episode, if you guys would like to support me, you can follow me on all my social media channels, share this podcast with a friend, review the podcast. That always helps. I love you guys so, so much. I will close this episode out by saying, what elephants are in your room? My name is Nicole, and I will talk to you guys next week.